If you break your arm, the X-ray shows this clean, jagged white line.
Right, it's undeniable.
Yeah, the doctor points to the film and just says, there it is. It is entirely binary. It's either broken or not broken.
Very straightforward.
Exactly. But when you look at how we actually make decisions in our daily lives, like how we evaluate risks or how we solve really complex problems, that X-ray machine is basically broken.
Yeah, it doesn't apply.
Not at all.
Yeah.
We are navigating these intense diagnostic muddy waters. So today, in this deep dive, we are tearing down the pervasive myth that analytical, clear thinking is some sort of, I don't know, genetic gift.
Right, this idea that you are either born with it or you aren't.
Which is just totally false. So we're going to unpack how to write a new mental algorithm, equipping you with a daily toolkit to bypass the cognitive traps your brain sets for you.
And those traps are everywhere.
They really are. The goal is so you can make higher fidelity decisions in your career, your finances, and your relationships. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
People often assume you're either a natural strategic genius or you're just stuck reacting to the world. But thinking clearly is actually an active, trainable operating system.
It is. And what's fascinating here is that the most formidable analytical thinkers aren't walking encyclopedias who just instantly possess all the correct answers.
Right.
The true marker of this cognitive skill is a remarkably high tolerance for those diagnostic muddy waters you mentioned.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, they spend significantly more time questioning their initial perceptions, delaying the brain's natural urge to just lock into a premature conclusion.
They don't just jump to the first answer.
Exactly.
So before we start rewriting our mental code, let's establish what this system actually does when it's functioning properly.
Good place to start.
I mean, we're talking about objectively examining incoming information, identifying underlying patterns, and really, the most crucial mechanism, separating verifiable facts from the interpretations we attach to them.
That separation is everything. It is the core mechanical function of clear thinking.
Right.
A fact is simply a standalone data point. An interpretation is the narrative our brain frantically builds around that data point to make sense of the world.
Because we hate not knowing.
Exactly. The human brain abhors a vacuum of information, so it blurs the fact and the narrative instantaneously.
And another big piece of this operating system is decomposition, right?
Yes.
Like, instead of staring at a massive, terrifying problem and just freezing, you are isolating the complex issue and breaking it down into its smallest manageable variables.
Like a jigsaw puzzle.
Exactly like a puzzle.
Right.
Looking at 1,000 unorganized pieces is totally overwhelming. But structured thinking is just, sorting the edge pieces and the colors first to make the task manageable.
Right. You find the borders.
Yeah. Plus, it's about differentiating between cause and effect and mere correlation. Just because two variables spike at the exact same time doesn't actually mean one caused the other.
A very common trap.
But honestly, to push back a little here, if I'm decomposing every single choice I make, if I'm constantly separating every single fact from its narrative, wouldn't that just crash my system?
You'd think so, yeah.
It just sounds deeply exhausting to run that high-level processing all day long.
Yeah.
Isn't it exhausting to overanalyze absolutely everything?
Well, that assumes structured thinking requires more baseline energy.
Yeah.
In reality, it acts as an energy-saving mechanism.
Wait, really? How?
Because unstructured thinking, where you let assumptions and anxieties just run wild, is what actually drains your cognitive battery.
Oh, I see.
Think about a coworker who is unusually quiet during a morning meeting.
Oh, I've been there.
Right. Your brain's immediate, unguided interpretation might be that they are angry with you, or maybe they're plotting against your project.
And then that narrative triggers a biological stress response,
Precisely.
which spikes my cortisol, raises my heart rate, and basically wastes an entire afternoon of focus because I'm just stressing about office politics.
Well, the only verifiable objective fact is that the coworker didn't speak. Wow.
By deliberately running the algorithm to separate the fact from the assumption, you abort that unnecessary stress response. I mean, they might just be sleep deprived or worried about a deadline.
Right, it has nothing to do with me.
Exactly. Structured thinking doesn't drain your energy. It protects your cognitive bandwidth from phantom threats.
Okay, so if this framework saves us so much energy and prevents so much anxiety, why is our default setting so irrational?
That's the evolutionary flaw.
Like, why do we instantly jump to the worst-case scenario with that quiet coworker instead of just seeing the facts?
Because human evolution didn't prioritize objective scientific truth. It prioritized immediate survival.
Keep you alive today, worry about the truth tomorrow.
Exactly. To process millions of sensory inputs without short-circuiting, the brain relies on heuristic shortcuts. It rapidly categorizes data based on past patterns and emotional weight.
Which makes sense if you're running from a tiger. Right. But the downside of those evolutionary shortcuts is that they manifest as cognitive biases in the modern world, where the threats are rarely physical predators.
Since we already know how something like confirmation bias locks us into echo chambers, like those endless polarized diet debates online.
Oh, those are the worst.
They really are. But the real question is how it weaponizes our own pattern recognition against us. It's not just that we ignore opposing data. It's that our brains actively hallucinate supporting data where none exists.
And we see a very similar misfiring mechanism with availability bias.
Okay, what's that one?
Your brain assesses risk not by running mathematical probabilities, but by checking how easily it can retrieve a memory of a specific event.
Oh, like refusing to fly on a commercial airplane because you just saw a vivid, fiery plane crash on the news.
Exactly that. The danger there is that your brain is seamlessly substituting ease of recall for mathematical probability.
Because the news made it so easy to picture.
Right. If the imagery is vivid and emotionally charged, your neural pathways fire as if the threat is imminent and highly likely.
Entirely overriding the statistical evidence that flying is exponentially safer than driving.
You just ignore the statistics entirely.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The underlying mechanics of anchoring bias.
A classic.
I always understood the basic concept, like walking onto a car lot, seeing a sticker price of 30,000 pounds, and feeling like an absolute master negotiator when you talk them down to 25,000.
Even though 25,000 might still be wildly overpriced.
Right, but why does that first number have such an inescapable gravitational pull?
It comes down to the fact that the prefrontal cortex lacks an absolute valuation framework for abstract concepts like price, time, or social status.
It doesn't inherently know what a car is worth.
Exactly. When it encounters an unknown variable, it desperately needs a baseline to build its mathematical model. The very first piece of numerical data it receives becomes that baseline, the anchor. Every subsequent calculation is just a minor adjustment relative to that initial anchor, rather than an objective assessment of true intrinsic value.
So we're essentially hijacked by our own hardware.
Pretty much.
And then you add the social layers to this, like authority bias, where we bypass our critical thinking algorithms just because someone holds a title or wears a uniform.
We just defer to them automatically.
Yeah. Or groupthink, where we actively suppress our own analytical processes just to maintain social cohesion in a boardroom or like a friend group.
Nobody wants to rock the boat.
Exactly. And then there's the massive hurdle of emotional reasoning. The brain runs a faulty process that basically says, I feel an intense sense of dread, therefore a catastrophic event must be unfolding.
We treat the biological sensation of an emotion as if it were a verified, peer-reviewed fact.
Which is crazy.
And it is severely exacerbated by the sheer volume of noise in our modern environment.
Oh, the constant notifications.
Yes. The influx of notifications, fragmented news, micro-decisions, it forces the brain into decision fatigue. When the executive functioning system is overloaded, it automatically defaults to those deeply ingrained impulsive pathways.
So since we're human, and our hardware is built this way, how do we stop our emotions and these biases from taking the wheel? Are we supposed to try and shut down the emotional centers of the brain entirely?
No. Attempting to suppress emotion is entirely counterproductive.
Okay, good, because I don't think I could do that.
Nobody can. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, emotions are vital data points. They signal our values, our boundaries, and our underlying needs.
So we shouldn't ignore them.
Not at all. The goal is not to become a cold, emotionless robot. The objective is to prevent those emotional data points from independently executing a final decision without a logical audit.
It's about inserting a manual override into the system.
Exactly. The most effective mechanism for that is a deliberate circuit breaker, a tactical pause where you simply ask yourself, would I interpret this situation differently if I were calmer?
Would I view this differently if my nervous system were regulated?
Yes. You are acknowledging the emotional data, but you are delaying the reaction until the rational processing centers can fully sync up with the emotional centers.
Okay, so we've got this circuit breaker, pausing to let rationality catch up. But a pause isn't a strategy.
No, it's just the prerequisite.
Right. Once you've paused, what exactly is your brain supposed to do to untangle the mess? How do we actually solve the problem in front of us without falling back into those heuristic traps.
This is where we deploy a systematic blueprint for problem solving. It's a 5-phase progression.
Okay, walk me through it.
Phase 1 is isolating the true root anomaly rather than treating the surface symptom.
Which is surprisingly difficult because the symptom is usually the thing causing the immediate glaring pain.
Exactly.
Take a business seeing a sudden drop in profits. The immediate reactionary response is to slash budgets and cut costs because it looks like a finance issue.
But that's just the symptom.
Right. If you run a root cause analysis, you might find the actual problem is a recent spike in employee turnover, which degraded product quality, which killed repeat sales.
You have to find the actual leak.
Yeah. Or on a personal level, you might think you need a medical solution for chronic stress, but the root cause is fundamentally just a broken time management system.
And if that initial diagnostic is wrong, every subsequent calculation is worthless.
True. So what's phase 2?
Once the true root is isolated, phase 2 requires gathering and analyzing diverse information. This is a direct mechanical countermeasure to confirmation bias. You have to aggressively solicit data that contradicts your initial hypothesis.
Which brings us to phase 3, generating multiple solutions. And I have to admit, I genuinely struggle with this step.
Those people do.
In the moment when I'm dealing with a crisis, my brain fixates on the very first life raft it sees. How do you force yourself to brainstorm alternatives when your brain is screaming that it already found the exit?
Well, that fixation is just another energy-saving heuristic. The brain craves closure to reduce cognitive load.
It just wants the problem to be over.
Exactly. So to bypass it, you have to treat your first idea not as a solution, but as a rough prototype. You avoid the trap of marrying your first idea by introducing artificial constraints.
Artificial constraints? Like what?
You ask yourself, if this first option were suddenly illegal or financially impossible, what would my next move be?
Oh, I love that.
This forces the neural pathways out of the default rut and demands divergent thinking.
Okay, so we've mapped out multiple routes. Phase 4 is running a predictive simulation on those routes, right? Evaluating the short-term benefits against the cascading long-term consequences.
Yes, weighing the outcomes.
And then, phase 5, executing the decision, making an actionable choice. But what happens when you get stuck in analysis paralysis? I know people who just keep making pro and con lists forever and never actually execute the decision.
This raises an important question. At some point, action must transform analysis into results. Analysis paralysis occurs when the brain sets an impossible standard of absolute certainty.
Waiting for a guarantee.
Right. But the goal of this analytical framework isn't to guarantee a flawless outcome, because complex environments always contain hidden variables.
You can't know everything.
Exactly. The objective is to make a move knowing you've used the best available information. Confidence doesn't come from a guarantee of success.
If the outcome is suboptimal, it isn't a failure, it's just newly acquired data.
Precisely. Mistakes aren't failures, they're just fresh inputs for the next iteration of the algorithm. You recalibrate your baseline and run it again.
I want to bridge the gap from these abstract systems directly to the reality of everyday life. This problem-solving blueprint isn't just for corporate boardrooms or academics.
Not at all.
The biggest return on investment for the listener is found in applying these steps to their everyday life. Finances, career trajectory, calendar, relationships.
Finances are a prime environment to test this. Purchasing decisions are heavily influenced by emotional dopamine spikes.
Oh, definitely. Impulse buying.
Replacing impulse with logic requires intercepting that impulse and running an audit. Is this expenditure a structural need or an emotional want?
You force your brain to evaluate the compounding long-term drag of debt against the fleeting short-term neural reward of acquiring something new.
Exactly. And in career negotiations, it is about seeing beyond the anchor. Like we discussed with the 30,000-pound car, a company might anchor you with a massive initial salary offer.
And if you don't run a full analysis, you blind yourself to the toxic culture, the horrific commute, or the complete lack of work-life balance.
You let a single impressive data point dictate a massive life trajectory.
Time management operates on similar mechanics too, right?
Absolutely. People often feel perpetually time-starved because they haven't audited their daily activities.
They don't know where the time is going.
Right. When you analyze your schedule objectively, you uncover exactly how many hours are consumed by low-yield noise versus activities that actually provide value.
So what does this all mean for the most volatile, complex systems in our lives, our relationships?
This is where the framework completely changes the game.
I feel like it reframes communication from mind reading to detective work. Normally, if a partner or a loved one sighs heavily, our brain immediately runs the they are disappointed in me script.
Yes, we get instantly defensive.
But a detective doesn't run assumed scripts. A detective interrogates the evidence. You seek evidence and ask clarifying questions instead of jumping to defensive conclusions.
And the secondary effect of this mechanism is profound. There is a persistent misconception that applying analytical reasoning to relationships makes you detached, cold, or algorithmic.
Yeah, that it kills the romance.
Right, but in reality, it actually deepens empathy. By actively separating facts from interpretations, like decoupling the objective fact of a heavy sigh from your ego-driven interpretation, you are forced to look at situations from multiple viewpoints.
Which is the foundation of strong communication. You stop projecting your own insecurities and start actively listening without interruption.
Exactly. That deliberate suspension of judgment is mechanically how you connect with someone.
So knowing the incredible life benefits of clear thinking, how do we actually go to the mental gym to get these gains? What are the daily reps to build the muscle?
Well, the neuroplasticity of the brain means it physically adapts to consistent structural demands. One of the most effective ways to build this capacity is logic puzzles and brain challenges.
Really?
Yes. Sudoku, crosswords, and strategy games train mental flexibility and pattern recognition.
I am in enthusiastic disbelief right now. You're telling me playing Sudoku or a strategic board game is essentially a bicep curl for the brain.
It absolutely is.
That's amazing. But I guess the goal isn't to become a puzzle master, it's just to build habits of careful observation.
Exactly. It's essentially running your brain through a flight simulator. You are conditioning your neural pathways to recognize complex patterns and anticipate cascading consequences.
What else can we do?
Another highly effective protocol is reflective journaling, tracking your decisions, outcomes, and blind spots over time.
By writing it down, you create a historical data set of your own cognition.
Right. Over time, your recurring blind spots and heuristic failures become glaringly obvious on the page.
You also mentioned the tactical pause earlier, slowing down and creating a deliberate space between a stimulus and your response.
Just delaying your response to a passive-aggressive email by 5 minutes is a repetition that strengthens that manual override.
And the overarching philosophy that powers all of these mechanics is intellectual humility.
Recognizing that saying, "I don't know," is a strength, not a weakness.
Because the second you lock into the belief that your mental model is flawless, the system stagnates.
Right. Curiosity is the true engine of lifelong learning. You have to make curiosity a way of life by constantly asking, why does this happen? Is there another perspective? What are the hidden variables here?
Ultimately, the trajectory of your life is determined by the compounded interest of your daily decisions.
Absolutely.
As we wrap up this deep dive, let's pull it all together. Strengthening your analytical reasoning is a lifelong journey from just accumulating raw knowledge to actually developing wisdom.
The quality of our lives is directly shaped by the quality of our everyday decisions.
And to you, listening right now, your mind is the greatest tool you will ever possess. But an engine only performs to the level it is maintained and calibrated. It is entirely up to you to cultivate it and take control of the controls.
And remember that the ultimate optimization is balance. We aren't trying to eradicate the emotional, human elements of our experience. We are combining thoughtful reasoning with self-awareness and compassion. That is the architecture of a wise life.
I love that. We're going to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over on your own, based on the fact that our daily choices accumulate to shape our future. If you were to audit the decisions you made just yesterday, how many were driven by actual evidence?
And how many were the result of hidden anchors?
Yeah, or availability biases, or unexamined emotional reflexes. If your life is simply the sum of your choices, what shape are you blindly building without even realizing it?